Hello and welcome. I'm Sima Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the headlines of this hour. India's AI Impact Summit 2026 continues at Bharat Mandapam, with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi emphasizing safe, fair AI. Global leaders and tech CEOs are gathering to discuss AI's role in economic growth, public services, and international collaboration. According to reports, the US military is preparing for a possible strike on Iran as soon as this weekend, but President Trump has yet to make a final decision. The White House has been briefed on the military buildup, and President Trump continues to weigh his options with advisors. US President Donald Trump will host a peace board meeting today at the Trump Institute of Peace, where 20 nations will announce $5 billion in funding for Gaza and the deployment of thousands of security personnel. Russian President Vladimir Putin says Moscow has always been on Cuba's side in its struggle for independence, in his meeting with Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez in the Kremlin. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says that the result of US-backed peace talks held in Geneva are not sufficient during an evening address on his social media. He says we are counting on the next meeting, adding that it is important that Europeans are present. Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg has given his testimony in a landmark tech addiction case against Meta and YouTube. Zuckerberg said that he regretted Meta's slow progress in identifying underage users on Instagram, as he faced accusations that his company deliberately hooked children into the platform. All 104 matches of the 2026 World Cup will be sold out, FIFA President Gianni Infantino has said, even though tickets are still available ahead of the tournament's June 11 kickoff. According to local media, 38 lead miners were killed when gas exploded at a pit in central Nigeria's Plateau State, while 27 others were also injured in the blast at the Kampanin Zurak mining site in Plateau State's Bashar district, according to the acting local traditional ruler. Now for this hour, we start with India. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has inaugurated the India AI Impact Summit 2026 at Bharat Mandapam in New Delhi, describing it as the most significant global gathering on artificial intelligence to date. Opening day 4 of the summit, Prime Minister Modi has said that India stands at the center of the world's largest technology talent pool and called it a moment of pride for the global south that such a major AI platform is being hosted in this country. Moreover, French President Emmanuel Macron, who co-hosted last year's AI Action Summit in Paris with India, has said that the two nations had set out guiding principles for responsible and transformative AI. Macron has described artificial intelligence as a force capable of reshaping healthcare, agriculture, and public services, while also warning that it has become a major arena of strategic competition globally. Additionally, Google Chief Executive Sundar Pichai has called AI the biggest platform shift of our lifetimes and pointed to Visakhapatnam as an emerging global AI hub. Now for this, we welcome Mr. Somraj Bhattacharjee. He's an AI and market strategic expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Mr. Somraj, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now,
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Now, can you tell us the significance of this AI summit, and how do you think this will be pivoting further collaboration in innovation and developments around South Asia and the world, of course?
Yeah, so this summit has basically been conducted in India for the very fact that India's democracy is very young. and adoption of AI technology in institutions, colleges, schools within India is extremely high. As the Honorable Prime Minister has often talked about, in India, people talk about AI right from the beginning nowadays, even when they are born. And that is something that is being promoted across the geography of India. South Asia also stands to gain significantly from this because, again, the demography of South Asia is very young. Everybody has a mobile phone, everybody has access to computing. So access to AI technology is increasing day by day. That is point number one. Point number two, because of the fact that so many Indian startups, so many Indian companies and institutions and organizations, they are investing very heavily in AI use cases for business applications. It is anticipated that a lot of major deals may go through during this event, and as a matter of fact, some of the leading AI minds, business leaders and minds, like from Google, from Microsoft, from Qualcomm, from NVIDIA, they're all visiting and they are talking on a lot of relevant topics. So this event stands to project India as a major incubation, innovation, and research center for AI globally. And South Asia stands to gain significantly from this because India is the pivot for South Asia. So this is what is being predicted by the government, and this is what is being uh, said for the event.
Right. And the Indian minister highlighted two significant commitments. One was to support evidence-based policy making, and another was the strengthening multilingual culture, real-world cases for diverse and inclusive and relevant South Asia. And also Prime Minister Modi gave an example of India being an example for all this. So what's India's strong point and weak point in being so diverse, inclusive, and relevant in South Asia?
So we have lots of languages and local lexical terminologies that we use. We have dialects, we have regional languages, and it changes every 100 kilometers. So companies like Google, companies like NVIDIA, who are internationally huge players in AI technology, they are investing very heavily in language-based solutions. So what is that? These are basically text and audio-based AI solutions that provides regional dialects and answers in regional dialects. This will help significantly the rural communities who otherwise may be left behind in the AI race. That's a very important point because of which so many companies are coming to India. Secondly, India also has started a lot of innovation and startup hubs which do local research at a very, very rudimentary level. Otherwise, this research would have gone abroad and would have been extremely expensive for companies and Indian companies to afford. This not only promotes a local ecosystem, this also encourages employability in AI. And as we all know, AI is, as a matter of fact, having a huge impact on employment opportunities. Some people are saying that AI will take away jobs, but as a matter of fact, for a demography as young as India and South Asia, AI could actually open avenues for new types of jobs. So what I mean by that is traditional white collar jobs like marketing, sales, finance, audit, control, operations, they may be replaced by jobs which are more AI centric. So what I mean by that is that in place of a traditional accountant's job, a person may have to actually work on AI tools and monitor accounting. So the nature of the job is changing, but accordingly, when the demography also adapts to technology faster, and a demography like that of South Asia, employment opportunity also increases. So as I told you, number one is scale, regional solutions, and number two is employability. These 2 points are extremely important when keeping in mind the AI event in India and the growth journey being predicted for this.
Yes, and Mr. Somraj, before I ask my next question, would you mind making your voice clearer over here? It seems like your voice seems very far away from here. Thank you.
Yeah.
And as of now, just a handful of venture capital firms control the internet ecosystem. How do you think governments will need to deliberately plan so that now with AI, same power structure is not repeated, like the same elite controlling a new system in different name?
Governments will have to invest very heavily in PPPs, public-private partnerships. Right now, handful of VCs control the ecosystem because they have the money to invest in open startups, free startups that are investing very heavily in their technology. If government can come up with a shared PPP model that can be used in this ecosystem, you will see a lot of government-driven incentives, a lot of grants being provided to these startups who would have otherwise gone to these VCs. And as we all understand, VCs work for profit, but government needs to work for inclusivity for all. So a lot of shared organizational platforms need to be incubated. As a matter of fact, a lot of these innovation hubs need to be encouraged. A lot of institutional level innovation hubs need to be encouraged. So what I mean by that is, recently we came to know that in China, if you want to do a PhD, if you have an innovative concept, if you have a technology that you can patent, your PhD may be granted without a thesis. The government should actually encourage such modes of education where if a young student who is maybe studying engineering, maybe studying data science and doing a PhD, if he or she wants to invest his time and effort in developing a novel technology, the government should intervene through these innovations. So as a matter of fact, we already have many such things as Atal Incubation, startup hubs, to allow these youngsters to get their companies registered at a fast pace, allow their grants to go through, provide them monetary help through these innovation hubs. And number 4, if they can come up with patents, allow them to file a patent at the fastest pace possible. So these steps are very necessary for the government to take. If the government can take these steps, we will see a lot of new startup companies in AI. So what sort of solutions? Solutions for healthcare, solutions for fintech, solutions for pharma, solutions for edtech, solutions for the manufacturing, solutions for transport, solutions for e-commerce, solutions for FMCG. So you will see a lot of new companies. Ideas are there. India doesn't lack in ideas. What India lacks, because you asked me to also point out the weak points, what India lacks is the right impetus in terms of capital, money. Right now, VCs control the ecosystem, but the government, and as a matter of fact, government is taking certain steps for this. So certain steps further should be taken to encourage monetization of ideas, because otherwise, a great idea will only stay on paper. It will never come out into the field and get actual capital behind it. That's something that the government should really stress upon, and I believe the government is doing this. And that's why this event has been conducted, because a lot of young startups are sitting shoulder to shoulder with some of the major enterprises who are global AI giants. So maybe we will have some new deals coming out of this entire activity, and in the coming days, maybe in the coming months, you very well may hear a lot of new startups going live with their products, because till now they just had the idea with them, they didn't have the money. Some of these major companies may actually invest in these ideas. So let's wait and watch for now, but I am hopeful that some really innovative solutions will get monetized and they may make it to the market finally.
With that, I'd like to thank Mr. Somraj Bhattacharjee for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout. Thank you very much. Now we move on to our next news. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says the outcome of US-backed peace talks held in Geneva is not sufficient to end the war with Russia. In the nightly video address, Zelensky has said Ukraine is counting on the next round of talks and stressed that European participation is essential. Let's listen in.
Сьогодні детально ми говорили кілька разів з нашою командою на перемовинах в Женеві. Був другий день зустрічі і тристоронні формати, також інші формати. Україна зацікавлена в результаті. Станом на сьогодні не можемо сказати, що результат впливі політичні питання про можливі компроміси та необхідну зустріч лідерів ще не опрацьовані достатньо. Розраховуємо на наступну зустріч і було би правильно ще в лютому. Важливо, щоб були присутні європейці, Франція, Британія, Німеччина, Італія, Швейцарія, як приймаюча сторона. Саме ми в Україні завжди просуваємо позицію, що Європа повинна бути учасницею процесу.
Meanwhile, the White House has said the United States has made meaningful progress in diplomatic efforts this week. U.S. spokesperson Caroline Leavitt has confirmed that additional discussions aimed at ending the war are expected in the near future. The comments highlights both cautious optimism in Washington and continuing frustration in Kyiv over the peace progress. Now we welcome Mr. Retired Colonel Sanjit Sirohi. He's an international relations and defense expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Colonel Sirohi, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, looking at this, how essential is Europe's participation, as we saw Zelensky call for it? But do you think it will danger elongating or complicating the talks further?
Good morning, Asuma. First of all, I thank you very much for inviting me on your news channel and discussing a topic which has been discussed for the last 4 years. We have been talking about Ukraine and Russia. Now, every time whenever they talk place, we think that something positive is going to come out. But unfortunately, nothing positive comes out from these talks, whether these talks are held in Geneva, whether these talks are held somewhere else. But every time there is some problem, and every time we are very optimistic. But the things are that the things are not moving the way they should move, and the way the Russians and the Ukrainians are fighting, and there are so many casualties on both sides. So I think it is high time that this talk should progress slightly fast so that the peace deal can be achieved and this war could be stopped. Asuma.
And, what's your take now? Is Zelensky incapable of holding his ground between US and Russia? Why does he keep trying to bring in Europe to the table?
Because he understands that although openly he does not say that, but he knows that the Donald Trump is very, very sympathetic towards Putin, and whatever demands have been put across by President Putin to President Donald Trump, he is considering most of these demands, and the basic demand is of the territory, which Zelensky is not ready to give in. So that is the thing. So Zelensky does not trust Americans that much that he trusts the Europeans, because Europeans have always been standing with Ukraine. Donald Trump, especially when Donald Trump has become the president, since then there has been a lot of ifs and buts in giving the support, whether it is in terms of diplomatic support or in the military support. But whereas the Europeans are concerned, they are always ready to stand with Zelensky, and they have always supported Zelensky, and they are still supporting Zelensky, and they don't agree to most of the points which have been given by Russians to the Americans, and Americans are also ready to accept those points. Europeans are not ready to accept those points, especially of the territory. So I think Zelensky is more towards Europe than towards the Americans. Asuma.
And lastly, how do you analyze this situation? Do you think Zelensky needs a change of strategy here in terms of defense, but also in terms of peace talks? Since you have highlighted the way Putin and U.S. President Trump's relationship is.
Look, Zelensky is in very, very tight spot. Now the tight spot is that if he does not agree to the demands of the Russians, then this war will not stop. But if he agrees to the demands, then he loses 20% of the territory. So how is he going to face his own public? Because after 4 years of so much of destruction and devastation and so many casualties, if you are ready to give up the territory, then the first question which will be asked by the public, Ukrainian public, and even the Europeans will be that why did you fight for 4 years when you had to give this territory? So that is a big problem, and that's why Zelensky is in a tight spot. That's why for everything he runs toward the Europeans, because Europeans are the ones who are against giving this territory. As far as the Donald Trump is concerned, he is not worried about that the Ukrainians will lose 20% of their territory. That is the big problem. That's why Zelensky on one hand wants peace, but he wants peace in such a manner that he doesn't have to lose the territory which they have already lost out to the Russians, and Russians are already occupying 90 to 95% of the Donbass region. Asuma.
Thank you very much, Colonel Sanjay Sirohi, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we come back to you. Now, looking at Europe once again, Denmark's King Frederik has arrived in Nuuk, February on 18th for his second visit to Greenland within a year, underscoring unity with the Danish territory amid U.S. President Donald Trump's renewed push to acquire the Arctic island. Speaking during the visit, the king has said that it was a great pleasure to return to Greenland and meet its people, adding that the well-being of Greenlanders had always been close to his heart. He was welcomed by Greenlandic Prime Minister Hans Fredrik Nielsen, who said the monarch's repeated visits during the ongoing diplomatic tensions had highlighted unity between the population and the Danish crown, describing Fredrik as a unifying figure for the Greenlandic people. This visit comes after Greenland, Denmark, and the United States launched diplomatic talks late last month aimed at easing tensions following President Trump's repeated comments, which sparked strains within the NATO alliance. Denmark's government has said discussions with U.S. officials were constructive, but warned that Washington's interest in acquiring Greenland had not changed. During his stay in Nuuk, the king has met residents, visited the Katuak Culture Center and Denmark's Joint Arctic Command, and greeted participants in Arctic Basic Training Program. Let's in fact listen into what the Danish king and the Greenlandic MP have shared.
Jeg vil sige, det er en stor glæde for mig at være tilbage i Grønland. Det er altid en stor glæde for mig at være i Grønland. Møde det grønlandske folk. Opleve naturen. Det grønlandske folks ve og vel, det ligger mig meget på sinde. Det har det altid gjort. Det vil det altid.
Altså nu har han inden for kort tid faktisk været her et par gange, kan man sige. Ikke? Han var her også på andre tidspunkter af den her, det vi kalder krisen her. Jeg synes lige nu, så er det jeg lægger vægt på, og det jeg bliver mærkeligt, det er, hvor stor en samhørighed der er mellem vores befolkning og hans majestæt konge, og det er jeg glad for, at vi har bevist igen. Han er en samlende figur for det grønlandske folk, så det at vi kan glæde dem, vi kan glæde hinanden ved at bruge et par dage sammen, det synes jeg bare er dejligt.
Now we welcome back retired Colonel Sanjay Sirohi for this discussion. Thank you very much, Colonel Sirohi, for staying with us. Now, looking at this situation, how important is a Greenland or Danish king to, ensure that Greenlanders feel that they're being cared for, they're included? How is this going to be affecting the maybe nationalism over there?
Suma, we have to understand that this Greenland thing, which has been going on since Mr. Donald Trump assumed the presidency of America. So Mr. Donald Trump is after taking over the Greenland, and the basic reason is, although he's talking about the security, it is not only security, but it is basically the critical minerals which are there in Greenland. So that is the basic reason. As far as the security is concerned, they already have a military base in Greenland, so I don't think that is the main reason. Now, the king visiting the Greenland within 1 year, that shows that it is more of an optics, showing that there is solidarity with the people of Greenland, so that, because Greenland people are also talking of autonomy. They also want independence, but they want independence and they don't want to get into America, this thing. So I think it is basically as a optics, and they want to show solidarity with the Greenland people, so that the Greenland people, they think that they have not been abandoned by the Denmark. So that is why I think this visit has taken a significant importance, and so that it also shows to the Americans and especially to Mr. Donald Trump that the Greenland is neither for sale nor for occupation by any other country except that it is part of Denmark. Asuma.
With that, I'd like to thank Mr. Colonel Sanjay Sirohi for joining us today and sharing that insight. Thank you very much. Now we move on to Germany. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has warned the United States against imposing higher tariffs, stating that Europe would respond with tariffs of its own. Now, speaking to supporters of his conservative CDU party, Merz has emphasized that if the US overdid it, Europe would be able to defend itself. His remarks come amid rising tensions with the US over tariffs. Earlier this year, President Trump threatened to increasing tariffs on European countries, including Germany, in a row over Greenland. Merz has also discussed his upcoming visit to China, highlighting the need for closer cooperation between Europe and China. He has stressed the inseparability of foreign economic and defense policy. Let's listen in.
Und wenn die Amerikaner glauben, dass sie mit hohen Zöllen entgegen der Vereinbarung, die wir im August des letzten Jahres getroffen haben, jetzt noch einmal einen oben drauflegen können und uns noch mal unter Druck setzen können, dann werden auch wir aus Deutschland und Europa heraus mit hohen Zöllen antworten. Meine Damen und Herren, und das ist sozusagen und wenn Sie der Meinung sind, dass Zölle wichtiger sind als Steuern im eigenen Land, dann ist das etwas, was die Amerikaner natürlich in eigener Entscheidung so treffen können. Aber es ist nicht unsere Politik. Und ich werde es bei meinem nächsten Besuch in Washington genauso wie das sagen. Ihr könnt es machen, aber wir werden es nicht mitgehen. Und wenn ihr es übertreibt,
Now we move on. The White House has stated that it is in Cuba's best interest to make significant changes soon, regardless of the ongoing political situation. However, it has stopped short of calling for a change in leadership. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has stated that Cuba's regime is falling and its country is collapsing. Meanwhile, the U.S. continues to advocate for flourishing democracies, especially in the Western Hemisphere. However, no specific actions have been outlined as of now. Furthermore, the U.S. is closely monitoring the situation but remains cautious about further intervention. Let's listen into what the White House Press Secretary has shared.
I think, as Secretary Rubio has articulated and the President himself, we obviously want to see flourishing and prosperous democracies all over the world, especially in our own hemisphere. I'm not dictating any actions the United States may take to get there, but of course that's in the United States' best interest to have Cuba be a truly free and prosperous democracy. Unfortunately, right now, that is not the case. They are a regime that is falling, their country is collapsing, and that's why we believe it's in their best interest to make very dramatic changes very soon, and we'll see what they decide to do.
Now we move on to Germany. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has backed growing calls for stricter limits on children's access to social media, signaling a potential shift towards compulsory nationwide restrictions. Speaking ahead of his Christian Union Party conference, Merz has stressed the dangers posed by artificially generated fake news and algorithm-driven influence. Merz has also pointed to evidence of online manipulation, both domestic and foreign, warning that young people are particularly vulnerable. Delegates at the Christian Union Conference are set to debate a proposal that could ban access to platforms such as TikTok and Instagram for children under 16. Similar calls have come from the Social Democrats, Merz's coalition partners, making it more likely that the federal government will pursue formal restrictions. Across Europe, countries including Spain, Greece, France, and Britain are examining comparable measures, which follow Australia's move last year to require platforms to block access for children. Meanwhile, a government-appointed commission examining the impact of social media on young people is expected to deliver its findings later this year. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.